So on the Strengthening Church Members Committee, the spokesman for the Mormon Church couldn't give me a satisfactory answer. Maybe the Apostle could. What is the Strengthening Church Members Committee?
Hi everyone, Nemo here. This video is brought to you by this channel's unofficial sponsor, the Strengthening Church Members Committee. Known as the SCMC, the view among many is that they are like Orwell's Thought Police, or the East German Stasi, a church department that watches for dissidents by monitoring members. The exact nature of their work is shrouded in mystery. Even to acknowledge their existence causes discomfort in the church.
What's the Strengthening Church Members Committee, and does it still exist?
I don't know, and I guess that's a question not for me. I couldn't tell you that. I don't know.
You're the head of media relations for the church.
Right.
And I've spoken to people, ex-members of the church, who say the Strengthening Church Members Committee does exist. Does it still exist?
I've heard that, yeah, there is a Strengthening Church Members Committee, but I couldn't tell you the details of how that works, but we'd be happy to provide someone that can.
Sorry for my confusion. When I originally asked you weren't sure. Now you do know that it exists, and you will give me somebody who knows something about it.
Absolutely.
And seeing as BBC reporter John Sweeney struggled to get a straight answer about the Strengthening Church Members Committee, I'm here to explain exactly who they are, what they do, and why they absolutely love my videos. The first ever public mention of the Strengthening Church Members Committee was in 1991. A 12-page internal church memo addressed to the Strengthening Church Members Committee from Bishop Glenn L. Pace of the presiding bishopric was leaked to local media. The committee then became a topic of discussion at the Sunstone Symposium the following year. The packed room at last week's Sunstone Symposium grew quiet when Eugene England took the podium. The Brigham Young University professor lashed out at a little-known committee of the LDS Church, the Strengthening Church Members Committee, which keeps secret files on Mormons who criticize the church. "I accuse that committee of undermining the church," said Mr. England. Later, he learned that some apostles sat on the committee. He immediately and personally apologized for unknowingly criticizing the brethren. However, the incident had lasting, damaging effects. One of the lasting effects was that the church came out with this statement confirming the existence of the Strengthening Church Members Committee. The spokesman, Don Lefebvre, told Religious News Service on Monday that the aim of the group, known as the Strengthening Church Members Committee, is to prevent members from making negative statements that hinder the progress of the Mormon Church, officially known as the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Lefebvre said the committee neither makes judgments nor imposes penalties. Its purpose is implied by the committee's name: to strengthen members in the church who may have a problem or may need counselling, Lefebvre said. It's really an attempt to help the individual. Lefebvre said the committee receives complaints from church members about other members who have made statements that conceivably could do harm to the church. What this committee does is hear the complaints and pass the information along to the person's ecclesiastical leader. Any discipline is entirely up to the discretion of the local leaders, he said. But the First Presidency of the Church also felt the need to weigh in, explaining the scriptural mandate for the existence of the SCMC. Many instructions were subsequently given to the prophet, including section 123 of the Doctrine and Covenants. And again, we would suggest for your consideration the propriety of all the saints gathering up a knowledge of all the facts and sufferings and abuses put upon them, and also of all the property and amount of damages which they have sustained, both of character and personal injuries, and also the names of all persons that have had a hand in their oppressions, as far as they can get hold of them and find them out. And perhaps a committee can be appointed to find out these things, and to take statements and affidavits, and also to gather up the libelous publications that are afloat, and all that are in the magazines and in the encyclopedias, and all the libelous histories that are published. The Strengthening Church Members Committee was appointed by the First Presidency to help fulfill this need and to comply with the cited section of the Doctrine and Covenants. This committee serves as a resource to priesthood leaders throughout the world who may desire assistance on a wide variety of topics. It is a general authority committee, currently comprised of Elder James E. Faust and Elder Russell M. Nelson of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles. They work through established priesthood channels and neither impose nor direct church disciplinary action. So the world now knows it exists, but they are yet to see it in action. Fast forward 13 months to September 1993, and we arrive at the September 6. Now, to be honest, I think the September 6 merit their own video, and if you'd like to see that, make sure to let me know in the comments and subscribe so you don't miss it. But the September 6 caused renewed interest in the actions of the Strengthening Church Members Committee, and whether it was indeed true that the SCMC does not impose or direct church disciplinary action. These questions circulated particularly in the light of the fact that Boyd K. Packer met with the stake president of Paul Toscano, who was one of the September 6, a meeting which Dallin H. Oaks denied to the press but admitted privately to Steve Benson. Oaks retracted his denial to the press when he realised it was a indefensible statement. For more details on that story, check out this video. Oaks acknowledged that the Strengthening the Members Committee, which some members liken to an intelligence agency, but which Oaks calls a clipping service, may have monitored speeches, writings, and activities of those suspected of apostasy and passed on material to church officials. Oaks himself gave a very good summary of what the SCMC does in the Deseret News on the 2nd of October 1993. He explained that local leaders are informed by church headquarters about members who may possibly be violating church standards. The church's Strengthening the Members Committee pores over newspapers and other publications and identifies members accused of crimes, preaching false doctrine, criticizing leadership, or other problems. That information is forwarded on to the person's bishop or stake president, who is charged with helping them overcome problems and stay active in the church. Now, as for the point that the SCMC does not impose or direct disciplinary action, I would imagine any local leader who received a dossier from church headquarters about a member would feel emboldened to take disciplinary action. The top-down nature of this church means that local leadership are likely to treat the receipt of such information as an instruction to act on the information, especially as church discipline is seen as part of helping someone ultimately remain active. Excommunication may be seen as a necessary step, but the attitude of the church is the person is welcome and often encouraged to come back once necessary steps have been taken. But the exception to all this seems to be my own local leaders, who I am informed have received pressure to excommunicate me, but have refused to do so. In fairness, my stake president doesn't really seem to care much for communications he receives from apostles, as he destroyed the letter that he received from Dallin H. Oaks that was designed to help me resolve my concerns. Nevertheless, things really seem to have changed in the past 30 years, where I can now be a full-time commentator on the church who does not bow to the church's sensitivities, and I've not been excommunicated. And actually, one of the first videos I did that got me major traction was covering the next public mention of the Strengthening Church Members Committee. That interaction you saw earlier between John Sweeney and Brother Purdy was from a BBC documentary entitled This World, the Mormon Candidate. It aired in March 2012 and was done by reporter John Sweeney in response to Mitt Romney's presidential campaign. It features a now infamous interview with Jeffrey R. Holland in which he seemed totally unprepared to deal with a journalist who wasn't a tame Utah resident. When I originally covered this encounter, the video was demonetized due to a copyright claim by the BBC. And now that I'm using clips from that interview again, this video is likely to be demonetized also. So this is the inevitable moment where I ask those who are willing and able to become monthly supporters through the donor box link in the description. Whatever you can afford, from $5 to $50 a month, will keep this research happening. If you can't afford anything, that's perfectly fine, because liking this video will help more people see it before the BBC try and claim it. Now with that out of the way, let's take a look at the interview.
What is the Strengthening Church Members Committee?
The Strengthening the Church Members Committee was born some years ago to protect predatory practices of polygamists.
I asked what is it?
Oh, that's what it is. It is to protect.
So it does still exist?
It does still exist. It does still exist.
And it looks at, it's there to defend the church against polygamists?
Principally. That is still the principal task.
And what is its subsidiary task?
I suppose just to be protective generally, just to watch and care for any insidious influence. But for all intents and purposes, all that I know about it is primarily to guard against polygamy. That would be the substantial, essential part of their work. I'm not on that committee, so I can't speak.
It's interesting how Holland tries to frame the SCMC as a group guarding against polygamy. Nothing in what we've discussed so far indicates that polygamists are the primary thing that the SCMC is concerned with. And to say the church weren't happy with this interview would be an understatement. According to The Guardian, the church responded to this interview by sending 2 men from PR and lobbying firm APCO Worldwide to hand-deliver a letter of complaint to the BBC. The letter complained about an interview which Sweeney conducted with Mormon apostle Elder Jeffrey Holland, which the church claims was an ambush, according to a BBC source. How could an interview as well organised as this be considered an ambush? Only in the overly sensitive and heavily controlled bubble in which the apostles exist could a pre-arranged interview with a professional journalist be seen as an ambush. But that was all the way back in 2012. That was 12 years ago. What about the committee now? Well, even as recently as this year, the Strengthening Church Members Committee is still being discussed. The Salt Lake Tribune covered Benjamin Park's new book and the insights it provides into the committee in an edition of the Mormonland newsletter. This newsletter points out, as already mentioned, that James E. Faust and the current prophet of the church, Russell M. Nelson, were on the committee during the time of the September 6. But who else has been on this committee? In around 2017, a document was allegedly leaked from church headquarters listing D. Todd Christopherson, W. Craigswick, Lynn G. Robbins, and David F. Evans as members of the Strengthening Church Members Committee. In 2019, Radio Free Mormon spoke with Timothy J. Dykes, who was a member of the SCMC and who confirmed that they do indeed have a file on RFM. I've posted a link to this episode in the description. Timothy J. Dykes is no longer on the committee, and this is the most up-to-date roster we have, courtesy of an alleged leak shared by Bill Reel. Interestingly, there seems to be no apostolic oversight now, but I can hear my critics coming for me. That's just an allegedly leaked image. How do you know who's on the committee? Well, Timothy J. Dykes' secretary confirmed to me that he was replaced by Shane M. Bowen as a member of the Strengthening Church Members Committee, and Kevin Pearson confirmed that the committee exists, that he is on it, and what it does. My current assignment is President of the Utah area, although I do have several other committee assignments as well, including the Strengthening Church Members Committee. That committee does a few things. We prepare area analytics to help those assigned to do priesthood leadership conferences. We track topics trending on social media that impact members of the church. We try to understand apostate groups and their impact on the church. That email was shared with me by an anonymous source who reached out to Elder Pearson to inquire about the SCMC. So that is 2 members of the committee confirmed. Thinking I too may be able to get them to talk to me like RFM did, I tried to speak to the members of the Strengthening Church Members Committee when I was at church headquarters in Salt Lake City.
Hello? Are you the ladies that answer the phone when I call?
Yeah, well, maybe.
Well, maybe. It's nice to put a face to a name. I'm from England, but I call here quite regularly. I was wondering if Shane Bowen or Kevin Pearson are in at all. They're from the Strengthening Church Members Committee. I've been trying to email them, but while I'm around, I thought I'd ask if they're here. Yeah. Sounds good. So Kevin Pearson and Shane Bowen. Yeah. I panicked a bit when I saw the lobby closed sign on the other side. Then I realized it's a big American building, so it'll have 2 lobbies, right? So.
It's with all the construction going
Uh
on.
huh. How long's that plan to go on for?
So I think a couple of years. I think the easiest thing for you to do,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't know if they're both in the building, is for us to give you the main number and call their office. So
Okay.
their secretary will answer.
Cool.
And then if you wanted to, you just wanted to do
Yeah.
information or whatever,
Mhm.
the best one.
Cool. So I'm 5,000 miles from home currently, so I'm heading home today. So I just thought I'm in the area. I'll see if they're around. Yeah,
You have a phone, cell phone?
I do. Yeah.
So here's an 800 number.
Uh huh.
And it's 800, so it's 241,000.
Mhm.
And then just ask for either one.
Mhm.
The operator.
Yeah.
Just
Okay.
say, well, Shane Bowen.
Kevin Pearson. Okay.
You could be connected to your office, and she'll send you right to the office. Secretary will help you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Thanks. Have a good day. Thank you.
Yep, you guessed it. Neither of them were in the building. I thought I'd take a punt and see if I could get them to speak to me in the building, because Shane Bowen refused to return any of my calls or emails, even after initially positive signals from his secretary. But these men, Shane Bowen, Kevin Pearson, and Mark Bragg, they can't be monitoring all the members of the church by themselves, can they? Well, of course not. They have help. There has been a post advertised on the church job board for a member of the social listening team. This looks to be an advertisement for someone to join the clipping service overseen by the current general authorities in charge of the Strengthening Church Members Committee. There are people hired and paid at church headquarters, paid with the tithing money of members, to monitor the social media activity of church members, including those the church deems to be part of apostate groups, according to Pearson. The most dystopian thing about all of this may just be that faithful tithe-paying members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints are paying for their own surveillance. They are paying the wages of those that watch them. And since we can safely assume that the Strengthening Church Members Committee are watching this video, let's give them a wave and leave whatever messages you might have for them in the comments.